has never been this unproductive. Right? To the economy. We need to rebuild our economy and put it back onto this path of sustainable growth. 3, education, like I said. Nigeria is the poverty capital of the world. The only way you grow out of poverty is to educate yourself out of poverty so that you can grow out of it. You can make wealth. Education is at the foundation of economic growth. So education is key. Security. Unless you provide security for your people, unless you provide security for your businesses, unless you provide security for your nation, nothing will thrive. And finally, devolution of powers. Devolution of powers in the sense that we believe that there are far too many powers concentrated at our federal government, at our central government, and not enough given to states and local governments, which are the bastions, which are the closest levels of government to the ordinary man. And so we believe empower the states more, and along with this power not only comes better funding, but also comes greater responsibility to ensure that the development that we promise comes knocking on the door of the average Nigerian on a daily basis. So the manifesto, my covenant with Nigerians, is a document, 115 pages, I think it is, that encapsulates the different policies that we're going to pursue to immediately upon taking over office improve the life of the average Nigerian.
All right, so the two key things that your principal has been hammering on: devolution of powers and restructuring. We know that the APC had a confab or had a committee to look into this, and the El-Rufai led committee came up with a blueprint, a paperwork, and that has been in the shelf for over 7 years. And the question is, how can we trust your party,
because we're not
especially with restructuring?
Because we're not the APC. First of all, you cannot trust. I mean, we're not the APC. The APC set up that committee, I think, in 2016. It submitted its report in 2018. Now, to show you that the APC was not serious about that, it submitted its report in December, I think, of 2018. At the point when the National Assembly, the 8th National Assembly, led by Dr. Bukola Saraki and Honorable Yakubu Dogara, Senate President and Speaker of the House, had just a constitutional amendment process. The APC did not submit any constitutional amendment bills. You see what I mean? Restructuring is only going to be achieved by constitutional amendment. They submitted their report after, not before, a constitutional amendment process was completed. Right? 2019. 32 bills had been submitted. 24 were passed by both houses of the National Assembly and sent to the states for assent. Of those 24, 12 were passed and sent back, that were now then sent to the president, who signed only 5 into law. So already you see that there was a lack of commitment. You know, these were people who were mouthing off restructuring, and who, when the time came to follow through, simply didn't. I will also now emphasize that since Dr. Bukola Saraki left office in 2019, it's been what now? 4 years?
Yes.
Have you seen any amendment of the Constitution? We're not them. We're not them. On the other hand, I support the presidential candidate, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, who has hankered about restructuring since 1994. So for a period of 29 years, has written paper after paper, has written a book, has made several presentations saying we have too much power at the center. Give more power to the states. There are issues that are being resolved by the federal government at the moment. For instance, grazing routes. that the federal government is attempting to resolve, which should be within the exclusive purview of the states and the local governments. Give them the power, give them the resources, give them the responsibility. Once you do so, you decentralize Abuja, you make it less appealing, and people are able to hold the governors that are next to them in their locales to account. The governors are then forced to deliver more to the people. Right? There's a reason why, unlike the APC that waited until 2018 to present, 2019 after what they call it, the constitutional amendment had been completed, to come up with their report. My candidate says, I have already drafted, sat down with some of the most erudite constitutional lawyers, some of the biggest stakeholders in this country, including the ordinary man, and we have come up with drafts already for constitutional amendment that we will submit to the National Assembly on day one as somebody who's prepared.
Okay.
That's the reason why you should trust it.
Okay. Speaking about policies, I want to know what you think about the redesign of the new Naira notes and how has it affected your party in any way? Because we've not seen them come out to complain that, this is like, it put a lot of pressure on our process and a whole lot of that. So what do you think about the redesign of the notes first, and then how it has affected your party?
It's like if you guys, so you guys,
because you're not saying anything about. Normally you guys don't talk. We said it here at one interview. We said you guys don't talk. We don't see you do a lot of. We see the other parties go out and about doing campaigns.
We speak a lot.
Yeah, okay.
I've been on the campaign trail. Been to maybe 24 of Nigeria's 36 states in the last 6 months.
Okay.
We talk, but I will tell you this. Okay, what is the thought about the redesign of the Naira? First things first, it is well within the purview of the central bank.
Okay.
Right? To redesign currency. It's a constitutional role. It's a role that is backed by an act, the CBN Act, that gives them the power to determine what is legal tender for our country. Do you see what I mean? So they're well within their rights to do so. Very well within their rights. This is perhaps the first time since forever when the design of the Naira is generating controversy.
Yes, and maybe it's because we're close to an election.
elections.
Now, we believe in the PDP that decent policy that is not necessarily being handled right. It's not necessarily being handled and implemented properly
Because of the elections?
No, the logistics relating to the policy. Yeah, the distribution of the Naira, the availability of the cash to people who need it.
What if CBN makes it available and
they're holding it? Because we've seen videos where
I have a lot to say on this matter.
Okay.
So let me say it. Right? So there's that. We believe it's not being to achieve a cashless policy or a greater online transaction economy. You have to improve Nigeria's communications infrastructure so that people can better handle their transactions without having to resort to cash.
True.
Which is what is at the bedrock of this problem. Yeah. But we've made allegations in our party that even though there are significant issues, those issues are being made worse by the APC. How so? We've made the allegation from our political party that APC politicians, knowing that the only way they can win this election is to buy votes, have mopped up
cash
in large amounts, in billions of naira, the new Naira notes from the central bank.
How factual is this?
This is factual.
From the central bank?
No, not from the from deposit
banks.
money banks. To the point where we're able to see that they have done so at least to the tune of 22 billion naira. We can say that specifically. And we're getting to the point where we will actually name names. We're just, we're just hoping, encouraging Nigerian people to ask them questions to see if they resolve. And if they don't resolve, we will name names. Already one politician has a reputation of bullion vans bearing billions of naira missing their way into his compound. There's already the only politician who has that reputation.
But But true to his spokesperson, I mean, he missed his way.
He missed his, and it was empty. The bullion van was empty.
He missed his way,
It was
and
empty.
he did not come out immediately. He stayed there
Ah,
for a while, for the rest of the
he had
day.
to rest.
Yeah,
Come on,
no.
come on. You had to rest.
Are we children? Are we children?
No, but remember what they said.
Yes,
He missed his way.
I'm going by what they said. He missed his way.
Yes,
Was in,
and it was empty.
and the next day, the same candidate says, that if bullion van came into his house, is it anybody else's money? The next day, when he was asked about it, did he not say so? It's public knowledge. He said, is it anybody's money? But it missed his way. We agree that it missed his way. Yeah. So we know now there is the law, there's the politics, and then there's the reality. And we can have all three conversations at the same time. The law says CBN can do what it's doing. The politics says that APC is complaining about this because they know that the only way they can win this election is to deploy the billions of naira that they have stashed away to buy votes, and that the naira redesign policy prevents them from doing so. How am I able to say that? Hadi Sirika, the Minister of Aviation, was pictured at a conference in Katsina saying, we will buy the election, we have saved money, we have stored money. And he said in the house, Muna the Pudi, we have it, we will buy the election.
When was this?
Hadi Sirika, it is on online. Google it, fact check me while we're speaking. Fact check me. The Minister of Aviation, and I can call names of, I'm calling these things because a lot of these things are in the public domain. And he was saying, we will buy it, we have money, we have stashed money. Now they are complaining because this policy prevents them from being able to deploy that money. That's the only reason that they are complaining. On the other hand, the presidential candidate of the PDP, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, acknowledged, before I go to my presidential candidates, let me also show you something about respect for law and order, respect for the rule of law, right? Governor Nasiru El-Rufai, the governor of Kaduna State, is on video telling people, ignore the CBN's policy. Continue to spend your old naira notes. Vote for Ashiwaju, and when he comes, he will change it. Let me tell you what that means. One, he's encouraging. He said when he comes, when Ashiwaju wins and comes into office, he will reverse the policy. So let me tell you what that means. One, it's treason. Encouraging anybody to spend money that is not designated legal tender in the Federal Republic of Nigeria by constituted authority is committing a crime. One. Two, he's telling us that our institutions will not be independent. By the provisions of the Constitution and by the CBN Act, the CBN is independent. It can in its sole wisdom decide monetary policy. And if you're saying that your president will come and will change the monetary policy of the CBN, what you're saying to Nigerians is that you have no respect for Nigeria's institutions. On the other hand, presidential candidate of the PDP, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, recognizes, issued a step on video, recognizes that it is within the law, within the provisions of the law, and within its rights as protected by law for CBN to implement monetary policy, such as the design of legal tender. And then goes to say, however, but this policy and the manner of its implementation is causing problems to Nigerians. And so CBN, I appeal to you, extend the time. Remember, the next day, CBN granted a 10-day extension.
Yes.
One. Two, he also says, take better steps to make sure that cash is available to Nigerians. Two, CBN begins to monitor and implement the distribution of the cash and begins to do a better job. And so we are seeing the situation improve. That is how you engage with institutions. You don't engage with institutions by command and control.
But again, you will agree with me that 36 governors across party lines agreed to see the president on the premise that they would have to plead with the president to check that PDP governors were part of these 36 governors.
Now, the PDP governors were there, right?
Yes, and they spoke with one voice.
No.
El-Rufai was the spokesperson.
No. You don't separate two meetings. The APC governors had a meeting with the president. Separate the two meetings.
But El-Rufai said 36
36
governors of
states.
the El-Rufai that
have
is-
agreed.
The El-Rufai that is telling lies. The El-Rufai that is well known for not telling the truth. The El-Rufai that on this issue has said several things that are not true. No. The APC governors had a meeting with President Buhari, where President Buhari said there's no going back on the Naira redesign policy. Our position in our political party is very simple. If you want to implement a policy that is within your right to do so, right? Just make sure it does not have negative consequences on the Nigerian people. Like I said, there are three conversations that can be had here. What is the law? The law lets you do so. What is the politics? It prevents. Let's not lie about it. I don't like when people hide behind the finger and say it will not prevent vote buying for the election. It will prevent vote buying. It will, and that affects every political party. Every political party,
including the PDP.
We don't buy votes. People, we know the issue. We don't buy votes. People vote for us freely out of support. But
go ahead.
But this affects everybody.
Okay.
Then it comes down to the reality. The reality is that the implementation of the policy is meting out hardship to Nigerians. Do better. That's what we're saying. If you remember, during the course of our time in office, PDP did Naira redesign for the 100 Naira note, did Naira redesign for the 500 Naira note, did the introduction of the 500 Naira note, did the introduction of the 1,000 note, did
and
the redesign of lower denominations.
Yes.
Did anybody experience any of these challenges at the time?
But we're close to an election, and we know that it's an election.
It's an intentional.
So the question you should be asking is that, and this is an APC policy problem from the beginning to the end. That's what it is. From the beginning to the end. You wouldn't have known if it was close to an election during PDP years. Why? It was seamless. There was a seamless.
There were lower denominations.
They were lower. I'm asking you. Okay, so you're saying that they are lower denominations solely, right? But I will ask you now. The lower denominations are not affected by the Naira redesign, are they?
They're not.
Right? Why are you not finding 100 Naira?
Okay, see.
So I spoke to a banker on this matter, and the banker said that they actually fought in the central bank because they receive 100 Naira payments, mutilated old notes, 100 Naira payments, and the central bank has to ask them to bring it into the central bank. And they're saying, if you knew that you're going to do a redesigned policy and 100 Naira would not become king, you should have allowed us as banks
to keep that 100 Naira.
What did I say? It's a badly implemented policy.
So it's not like you think that the policy is bad.
It's
just like it's wrongly implemented.
No, we're moved, and we're telling you, keep your anger. Don't. In fact, we're saying it to Nigerian people. Please, do not attack banking facilities. Yeah, if you want to protest, please be peaceful. Do not attack anybody, because all Nigerians are feeling the impact. Right? Be that as it may, we are saying, you know what, this is a government of bad policy. From the beginning to the end. From May 29th, 2015 to May 29th, 2023. This is a government of bad policy. This is just another example. So right now,
but many people have lauded this policy actually.
Hold on.
Maybe wrong timing, but it's been lauded.
Hold on. We're here. It's Naira redesign. Yeah? But a few weeks ago it was insecurity. A few weeks before that it was the cost of living. A few weeks before that it was education. A few weeks before that it was NSAS. And I'm saying to you, over the years, we have seen one bad policy or the other. Now I'll begin to ask the question, where were the APC governors? When Kaduna was practically shut down by insecurity. Why did the APC governors not take the presidency to court or the federal government to court? Why did they not hold a press conference challenging the federal government to provide better security? When Zamfara was sunken under insecurity, where was he? When Kogi State, just a few weeks ago, was flooded to the point where the nation's connecting infrastructure that connects the north and the south was completely submerged underwater, was the governor of Kogi State not releasing a video of him doing of him dancing to a song? Where was he? Where was this seriousness? Where was it? Let me tell you what the only reason why the APC is making any noise about this policy. They're only making noise about this policy because it affects their ability to buy votes for the election. Simple and short. If there was no such effect, and an APC member and a member of the Presidential Campaign Council said so on channels television this very morning, that it is harming their political prospects. That is the only reason for their complaint. Why am I able to reach this conclusion? Because you heard nothing from these people for the last 8 years, when Nigerians have groaned, Nigerians have suffered, Nigerians have died under the negative effects of their bad policy.
All right, let's talk about some other parts of state of the nation now. Some of the things that are going on in the country across the polity. You're a lawyer, and I know that you would have a perspective on this. What's your party's chances at the Oshu Tribunal?
Oh, I like that question. Very high. Very high. And I'll explain. Law, Constitution, Electoral Act empowers INEC to conduct elections. Electoral Act empowers INEC to determine the processes by which elections are conducted. INEC says BVAS is our process, right? BVAS is deployed. Please, people should pay attention to the dates. July 16th election is held. Now, July 17th, INEC releases a temporary BVAS report, right? Temporary. Why is it temporary? Because of the nature of failing infrastructure around our country, right? You don't have service everywhere. So there were places where the BVAS machine was deployed that they needed to take back to the server room to synchronize the data between the BVAS machine and the server, right? Simply because when they pressed send, it did not work because there was no network. So they needed to synchronize it. This fact was made known to all parties when they issued the temporary report on the 17th. And the Electoral Act says that they need to produce a complete report within 10 days. 10 days after the elections. So on the 27th of July, they produced a complete report. APC carries the temporary report and goes to court and is shouting, overvoting. INEC, the constitutional body empowered by law to conduct elections, comes to court, says no, that's not the original BVAS, that's not the complete BVAS report. This is the complete BVAS report. Not only that, INEC comes to court with the BVAS machine and says you can extract, the court can extract directly evidence. Right?
Yeah.
The court ignores INEC and relies on a report that everybody was informed was a temporary report. Straight away, the court has erred in law, because according to the provisions of our law, the primary source of information for elections is INEC. The forms that were submitted, the electoral forms from EC08 and EC08A, corresponded with the BVAS report, the complete BVAS report, which was issued on 27th of July 2022. Right? So once you take all these things into consideration, you wonder how did the judges reach that judgment? There's a lot of well, then again, we have a Supreme Court that pulled off the emo miracle, and we have a Supreme Court that is doing magic and assuming jurisdiction over a matter that it has no jurisdiction over.
Okay, so
Nigerian people need to be vigilant and to demand from the Supreme Court, because we're looking at it now and it seems like, oh, it's all well and good, it doesn't affect me. If this judgment stands, I'm sorry, it affects you immediately. Affects you immediately. Because what that means is that all somebody has to do every time there is an election is completed to cancel your polling unit is to go and say, no, the temporary Beavers report is the correct report, and a court to uphold it. And then suddenly, all the votes that you may have cast in favor of your preferred candidate will be cancelled. So it should concern all of us.
Seeing that you're a social media person and online, they've carried it everywhere saying MC Oluomo is now going to be part of the election process in Lagos State. And Lagos State has one of the largest number of franchised Nigerians, right? Does it worry you?
7 million plus.
Wouldn't worry anybody. Of course it worries us. MC Oluomo is the hatchet man of the APC presidential candidate. There is a video of him dancing the day the APC presidential candidate Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu won the primaries, and he was shocked. There are so many pictures of him with Asiwaju, so many pictures of him wearing Asiwaju's insignia, and then you carry the goat and give the yam and give it to the goat.
But you have not made any official statement out there.
There's been an official statement. The party has condemned it. The party has condemned it and asked that cannot be allowed to happen.
All right, as a lawyer now, let's take partisanship away from this a bit. As a lawyer, the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court also ruled in favor of the Senate President in the primaries many thought he didn't participate in. Even in the defense, they said a new primaries was done.
Let me tell you.
But the question is, did INEC monitor that new primaries?
The questions about that judgment are many. The Electoral Act is very clear. Once a primary has been conducted, the only way the candidate who emerges from that primary can be changed is either that candidate dies or that candidate withdraws by writing a letter and submitting it in person. So if he sends somebody to submit it, it's not valid. If he sends it through registered courier, it's not valid. If he sends it by electronic means, it's not valid. It's written in the Electoral Act, in person to the national chairman. Unless that happens, he remains the candidate of the party. There is a candidate who puts his hand up and says, I did not withdraw. How then are you holding a second primary? 1. 2. Section 115, subsection D says that participating in 2 primaries, 2 electoral processes, is not only illegal, it is a crime punishable by 2 years imprisonment. So if you participate in a presidential primary and then go and participate in a National Assembly primary in the same electoral cycle, it's a crime under the provisions of our constitution. Anybody who does so ought to have been arrested, handcuffed, put in a Black Maria, transported to a court, convicted, and put in Kuje prison. It's in the Electoral Act. So it is not only a breach of our law, it was a crime.
So do you see a post-election court case spring up in this?
I don't know about that.
Should Machina keep quiet and the election goes on?
Our election, you have the Supreme Court.
That's a pre-election matter.
No, hold on. You have the Supreme Court, right? If he did not, according to the Electoral Act, he cannot go to the Election Petition Tribunal with a pre-election matter.
Okay.
For all intents and purposes, that matter has come to a conclusion. It's a terrible judgment, but it has come to a conclusion. And this is one of the promises of the Atiku Abubakar administration, that we empower the judiciary to a point where not only do we not see these sorts of judgments, but that we're also able to have internal review processes that identifies and corrects these sorts of errors to make sure that they don't happen. That judgment was a travesty. It was a travesty of law. It was a travesty of fact.
Right, time is fast spent now. We have to go. But before we go, I've got 2 more questions to ask you now. One is the obedient movement.
I have no comment about it.
No. I see that the PDP and the Labour Party, or the articulated guys and the obedient, are trying to play gentlemen to the gallery.
They're not even.
They're trying to play gentlemen to the gallery.
Bashing each other.
But my question.
Not bashing each other.
It is that
They're
much.
not.
Yes, they're not.
They're not at all. They're very gentlemen.
When Nigerians stand.
I do the analytics.
When Nigerians stand.
I do the analytics.
But my question is.
I do the analytics. Hold on.
Okay.
So I do the analytics on social media constantly, at least twice every week. The highest amount of condemnation and criticism that comes for our presidential candidate comes from people who support Mr. Peter Obi. The highest amount of, in their condemnation of our candidate, they've not pulled any punches. They have told lies about his competence. They've told lies about his character. They've told lies about his personality. They've even gone to the point where they've put the size of his family, something that has never been done in the history of our country, as a political talking point and as evidence of his unsuitability for the office of president. On the other hand, we in the PDP largely refrain from discussing, criticizing, or condemning Mr. Peter Obi for a simple reason. Just a few years ago, he was our vice presidential candidate, and many of us advocated for him. If we say some of the things that they're saying now, just because it's political season, we'll be making liars and hypocrites out of ourselves, right? So we don't do that. We're just focused on telling people what the simple truth is. Our presidential candidate is the most competent candidate on the ballot. Our presidential candidate is the most suitable candidate on the ballot to lead Nigeria in a post-Buhari era.
So we don't want to get into campaigns. let's talk about the fact that your party has not been favored in any poll. What are your chances?
There is only one poll that matters.
What are your chances?
Let me tell you. I'll tell you two things. There's only one poll that matters. The one that's going to be conducted on 25th
of February,
where 94 million Nigerians are allowed.
But this other poll,
hold on, I will answer.
Has been closed.
Polls that have been conducted, some were not conducted using the voter register. Some, yes, no. So you're asking people who are not going to vote who they want to be president. Polls that have been conducted, that the methodologies are questionable. Polls that have been conducted, that the sample size is funny. I will tell you two things. I've seen some of PDP's internal polls. We poll every day. Every day. If you ask me now, I can tell you almost with mathematical certainty the states that we will win with a landslide, the states that we will barely win.
Any hope in the southeast?
The states that we will get 25%.
In the southeast?
At least 3 states, 25% in the southeast.
Do you have hope in the southeast?
I'm telling you now, at least 3 states.
In the southeast?
I'm very specific, at least 3 states in the southeast that we will get 25%.
Okay.
Yeah, I can break it down for you.
I
will tell you, I've seen polls that had 11,000 people sample size. When we come to the public and we are confident that Alhaji Atiku Abubakar is the next president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, we're doing the groundwork.
In 30 seconds, do you trust the umpire to deliver a good job?
Yes.
I have faith.
You have faith.
You have faith, you don't trust.
He has faith.
He has faith. Okay.
All right, thank you very much for joining us. We'll be speaking with Ilemonal Noja, the head new media department at the PDP Presidential Campaign Council. It's been a fruitful conversation. Thank you again for coming. We wish you well on the 25th of February.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, more music and then the news comes up. Don't go anywhere. Still logged on to 102.3 Eagles FM.